You're getting married? It all started one day at our usual dinner table. My oldest son, Brad, started off by saying he had something to tell me. My name is Mary. I'm 51 and I work part-time. I still feel young mentally, but there's nothing I can do about physically getting old. But my sons, who have grown up to cover for my declining energy, are my pride and joy. Brad, my eldest of 3 sons, has decided to get married. I knew he had a girlfriend, but it's finally happening.
So Brad is getting married, huh? That means you're getting old, honey.
Well, I guess no beer for you tonight, then?
Just kidding.
I ignored my husband's stupid joke and looked at my son's face. The other 2 are away in college, so the only one living at home is Brad, who's now working. He's matured a lot in his 3rd year of work. Since deciding to get married, he seems even more manly and dependable than ever before.
Tonight, we will toast in celebration.
After my husband tearfully apologizes to me, saying,
I'm sorry, you're forever young and beautiful.
I granted him a single bottle of beer. According to my son, they are at the stage of discussing things like checking out wedding venues and deciding on a ring. The actual date is still up in the air. First, he said he wanted to bring his fiancée over to meet us. Marriage is a significant milestone in life, after all. I want them to have a wonderful ceremony. I know the stars of the show are my son and his wife-to-be, but I'm feeling a bit excited. Maybe I'll even get a new dress. My husband is going on about how beautiful I was in my bridal gown. Maybe I'll treat him to some more snacks. Then the weekend came. My son's future wife arrived.
Hello, I'm Alice.
I was surprised at the casual greeting, but I guess that's just how young people are these days. Alice was a part-time employee at my son's favorite cafe. She was smitten with my son, and after a determined pursuit, they started dating. As the conversations came to a pause, my husband turned to me and said,
Ah, yes.
I nodded back at him.
We have something important to tell you, Alice.
The 3 of us, my husband, myself, and our son, had discussed this and decided to tell her.
The truth is, Brad isn't our biological son.
Alice's eyes widened in surprise at these words. It must be a shock.
He's my nephew. Brad is my brother and his wife's only child. But they passed away in an accident when he was very young, so we adopted him. But he's like a son to us. We consider him our eldest. Please, take good care of our son.
As my husband and I smiled, she fell silent. Perhaps she was struggling to respond.
Well, let's leave the heavy stuff there. So, when and what kind of ceremony are you thinking?
My husband ended the somber topic with a cheerful smile and switched to a brighter topic.
I would like to wear a traditional white wedding dress if possible.
As she said this, she looked at my son's face. My son smiled brightly and nodded. Oh, that sounds wonderful. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event, so it needs to be perfect for the bride, I said, at which point Alice pulled a strange face. For a moment, I thought she was glaring at me. Was it my imagination? Before I could ponder further, her face had already returned to its usual expression.
And what about you, Brad? What kind of wedding do you want?
No, we don't need your opinion.
Alice immediately responded when my husband tried to engage our son in the wedding talk.
What?
The 3 of us were surprised and looked at Alice, who seemed puzzled by our reactions, as if she couldn't comprehend what was wrong with her statement.
But you said it yourself, didn't you, Auntie, that it needs to be perfect for the bride? The groom is just a bonus. I'll have it my way.
Her radiant smile left Brad speechless, and I was taken aback by her calling me Auntie.
But surely Brad's wishes should be considered too.
No worries. Leave everything to me, and it'll be the best wedding ever. Just make sure you work hard and contribute the funds, Brad.
Her unstoppable energy and audacity left us all speechless.
What a remarkable girl.
And all I could do was nod in agreement. A few days later, we had a meeting with both families at a nice restaurant. This time my husband's mother was present too. She wasn't able to join us last time because she was at an adult daycare center. She was excited to meet her grandson's fiancée, and despite using a cane, she was quite energetic.
Sorry for the delay. Traffic was a nightmare.
Alice talked in a really casual way, even though we had only met once. I noticed her parents in the background. They both shyly waved and quickly took their seats. The atmosphere was somewhat awkward. Without much conversation, we all quietly ate our meals. It was the moment I drew a breath to make some small talk. Alice suddenly spoke up.
Granny, do you have trouble walking?
That's right, dear. Old age has taken a toll on my legs.
I absolutely refuse to care for you,
Alice declared out of the blue, causing a moment of stunned silence. Someone went, "Huh?" It was probably my mother-in-law, but it could also have been me.
I want to make it clear I have no intention of caring for any of you. Auntie, you're not my mother, right? That makes you a stranger. And while Uncle might be related, he's not my father. I won't look after any of you.
Hey, Alice. Brad attempted to rein her in, but she wouldn't stop.
And I definitely won't be calling you Dad or Mom, so remember that.
I glanced at Alice's parents, taken aback to see them both nodding in agreement. Well, it's true that Brad isn't our biological son, but we raised him like one.
Hush, Uncle.
Okay, I'm sorry. My husband fell silent after being sharply rebuked by her. Pathetic. It was at that moment the sound of a fork being gently placed down resonated. Is that so? A calm single statement. I carefully glanced at my mother-in-law. She seemed composed, but you could tell she was furious.
They may not be their biological parents indeed, but they've raised them with more love than real parents would have. That's not something outsiders should meddle with.
I don't care what you say. I'm not doing caregiving.
It infuriated me, but I held my tongue as my mother-in-law continued to speak.
I'm not expecting anyone to take care of me. I know I'm old, but I don't want to burden my daughter-in-law, so I use the facilities mostly every day.
Oh, really? And?
I've already transferred my assets to the couple as gifts while I'm still alive. They can use that money to go to the facilities or do whatever they want, so you won't have to lift a finger.
Well, isn't that nice?
She responds to my mother-in-law with irritated replies. Even when her son tried to chide her, it was like water off a duck's back.
This discussion ends here. It's time to go home.
With a single statement from my mother-in-law, the meeting came to an end. Women have become stronger these days. Perhaps that's the way of the world now. The rest of us, born in the 60s, were left with mixed feelings as we returned home. A few days later, my husband and Brad were at work. My mother-in-law was at the adult home, and I was alone at home with a day off from my part-time job. The phone rang at that moment.
Oh, hey there, Auntie.
To my surprise, it was Alice on the line.
Hey, Auntie, can you not show up at the wedding?
What? I let out a surprised cry at her unexpected request.
You're not Brad's real parent. You're technically his aunt, but you don't have any blood relation, so you're essentially a stranger. Strangers don't come to weddings.
But what about Brad?
He doesn't matter. I told you, I'm doing the wedding my way. At the ceremony, I'll be preparing a letter to his deceased parents. That'll surely move everyone.
That's not how it works. Brad's biological parents were indeed important to him, but he wanted us, his parents, to be at the ceremony. He told us that he thinks of us as his real parents, which brought tears to our eyes before.
If you really want to attend, you'll have to be super generous with your gift. You received an inheritance from your mom, right? So $10,000 is the bare minimum. If that's the case, I might let you sit in the far corner of the relative seats.
How could you say such a thing?
If you don't like it, fine. Don't come to the wedding. Oh, but you still have to give a gift. Wire transfer or registered mail is fine. Bye.
She hung up the phone as if she had said everything she needed to say. It was like a whirlwind of a phone call. That night, Brad was going to be late due to overtime, and my husband was out for drinks. It was just me and my mother-in-law at home. A quiet strategy meeting time. Alice seems to dislike me.
That's a problem.
My mother-in-law sighed at my words. Let's make her like us then. Simple and clear. If we're disliked, we'll make ourselves liked. And so my mother-in-law and I stayed up late into the night hatching various plans. The sight of us grinning in satisfaction, saying, "Perfect, let's do this," made my husband, who had just come home, dumbfounded, but that's another story.
Here to collect some cash.
The next day at lunch, when I called Alice and told her we had something to give her, she came right away. Does she think every gift is cash? Shaking my head, I pulled out something.
What's this?
It's a cupcake I made,
said my mother-in-law with a smile.
I heard that you don't have grandparents. Try some of this. It's a super traditional one.
I don't want it.
Don't be shy. Here you go.
No, I'm good.
After a back and forth between Alice and my mother-in-law shoved the treat into Alice's mouth. My mother-in-law's assertiveness is definitely her strength.
Whoa, that's gross. Why is this so salty?
Alice shouted, quickly gulping down the iced tea we served.
Salty? That's odd. It shouldn't be.
Perhaps you confused the sugar with salt. I also took a bite and grimaced. We had left everything to my mother-in-law, apart from the preparations and cleanup. But who could have predicted such a basic blunder? The cupcake plan had failed. But that's all right. Let's move on to the next plan. I have a gift for you.
Wedding money? A gift card?
Nope. What I handed her was a slightly larger paper bag. Looking at it, it was clear it didn't contain money, causing a frown to crease Alice's forehead.
What's this?
It's a dress. I hope you like it.
It's gross. This isn't my taste at all. I would rather have money. Money!
When she's this blunt about wanting money, it makes you not want to give it to her. I seriously thought about the dress that looked good in her. Not having a daughter, I'm not really familiar with the fashion trends for young women these days. I had consulted with the store clerk, but it seemed like it wasn't successful. It's a real blow. And another failed plan. It feels like we didn't get closer, but rather things got even worse.
That's enough. I don't want anything else. Just give me the cash. A cash gift is what represents the spirit of celebration. Don't you want to celebrate your son?
Of course I do. Then I'll give it to my son.
The wife should manage the husband's money. That's only natural. Just hurry up and hand it over, old woman.
So this is her true nature, I thought, feeling saddened. Is my son really going to marry her?
Who are you calling an old woman? I'm still spry. You're an old woman just by saying spry. Actually, you're a granny.
Alice was saying whatever she wanted. As I wondered what to do, I was suddenly surprised by a voice saying, "I'm home."
Brad, wait, what happened at work?
Alice started to panic. She was probably worried about being overheard. We went bankrupt.
Huh? Did your father do something?
Alice's misunderstanding echoed throughout the room, followed only by silence. Bankrupt. The company. It's gone under.
Bankrupt? Gone under what?
It wasn't just Alice that was surprised. My mother-in-law and I were both taken aback. Alice grabbed my son's slumped shoulders and started shaking him.
What does bankrupt mean? Jobless? Penniless? What are we going to do about the wedding?
I'm sorry, it'll have to wait. Releasing her grip from my son, who answered listlessly, Alice stood dumbfounded, and then she cried out.
Then how am I supposed to pay the damages?
Now it was my mother-in-law and I who were taken aback at these words. My son being jobless was one thing, but I couldn't keep up with what was happening anymore. Damages?
Ah, never mind. Just give me the gift money quickly.
Seems she no longer cared if my son was present. She held out her hand to me. My mother-in-law addressed her.
Alice, could you give us an explanation? Shut up. Just give me the money. Alice. Shut up. It's you who needs to shut up, young lady. Explain yourself.
Was this my mother-in-law's true colors? Her tone had suddenly changed from calm to harsh, and Alice was taken aback. And so, under the gaze of the snake-like mother-in-law duo, Alice started to speak in a weak voice. Apparently, Alice had been having an affair with her boss at her part-time job. Moreover, the guy was married. His wife found out and is demanding damages. But she had no money. So she thought about marrying my son. She had calculated that if they married, she would receive a hefty amount in gift money, and planned to have my son pay for all the wedding costs, while she would keep all the gift money. My mother-in-law and I were speechless. Of course, we were angry that she had used my son, but we were also astounded by how she didn't think she had done anything wrong throughout the entire conversation.
I've already ended it with my boss. Once I pay the damages, it'll be over. That's why I'm going to continue with the marriage. Give me the gift money.
It's a good thing the truth came out before the wedding, but I didn't know what to say to her. As I was worrying, I heard a low, muffled voice.
Don't make decisions on your own.
Looking up, I saw my son Brad glaring at Alice. His face was full of rage.
You had an affair and yet you think you can make all the decisions?
Alice probably never thought she would be shouted at. Brad is usually so calm. He's probably never raised his voice at her. Alice gave a small start.
So what if it's over? You're not even trying to pay the damages yourself. You were trying to use our marriage to your advantage. You haven't shown any remorse. Do you really love me?
Of course I love you. That's why I want to get married.
Then pay the damages yourself. Show some sincerity.
But... Alice tried to cling to my son, but he coldly pushed her away.
Either way, we can't get married until I find a new job. Can you wait until then?
She was at a loss for words. If she truly loved him, she would be able to wait. She would say she would support him. But those words didn't come from her.
What's enough is enough.
Out came her words of frustration.
Enough? I never even liked you to begin with. I thought you could bring in some money, but I don't need a jobless, penniless man.
At last, Alice showed her true colors. Perhaps that was her true feelings. She shouted and left the house. Was Brad really okay with this? I noticed Brad shaking when I turned around. Is he crying? Just as I was about to reach out to comfort him. My son suddenly burst out laughing. Was he broken from the shock? It was a lie. Huh? A lie?
The company's not bankrupt. Business is doing well. I just came back to pick up something I forgot.
Turns out the bankruptcy was a lie. In reality, my son had come home during his lunch break to pick up something he had forgotten. He saw the three of us there together and listened to our conversation. My son, suspicious of Alice, who kept insisting on money, had set a trap for her.
I'd heard that when a lover becomes jobless and penniless, their true nature shows. I wanted to test it.
And the result was damning, to say the least. Don't you love her? I asked. My son looked a little sad.
I loved her enough to want to marry her, but you can fall out of love in an instant. Maybe in that sense, I didn't love Alice all that much either.
In that case, it might have been for the best that the engagement was called off. I exchanged a look with my mother-in-law, and we both found ourselves laughing. As for what happened after, it seems the cafe where Alice was working part-time went out of business. Apparently the manager, who was Alice's affair partner, had to give up the cafe to pay for the alimony following a messy divorce. This was information from another regular customer at the cafe, as told by Brad. As for Alice, she had no means to pay the alimony herself and had to ask her parents. They were furious with her and kicked her out of the house. She's living in a run-down apartment, working a night job. That's what we heard from her parents. A few years later, by the time my two younger sons had started working, Brad was getting married. His partner is a very nice woman.
Thank you for raising Brad into a wonderful man. I'm not much, but I'm looking forward to getting to know you two better.
Even knowing the truth, she thanked us like that, and both my husband and I were moved to tears. Seeing us like that, Brad gave a big smile. Congratulations, Brad. I'm sure your parents in heaven are also happy. When I said that, my wonderful son smiled softly and said, Yes, but I'm happy if my parents in front of me are also happy. At his words, I found myself crying again. Oh dear, here come the tears again.
You're crying too much. You've aged and gotten so tearful.
When my husband said that, I told him he wasn't going to be having beer tonight.